So today we're going to write polynomial functions given the zeros. So you're going to understand the zeros of polynomials in order to write the equation for the polynomial. Basically, we are taking what we did with finding the zeros yesterday and working backwards. Okay? For each question, write the simplest polynomial with the given zeros. So, step 1. If I know that the zeros are -3, 1/2, and 1, then think of that as being the answers you got yesterday. And when you got those answers, you knew that those were x values. So we knew x equaled -3, x equaled 1/2, x equaled +1, right? So the first thing we need to do is say x equals the zeros that are given. Okay, then think backwards. You found those zeros by setting your factors equal to 0. So we need to move everything to the left so that you have a factor that equals 0. Okay, so I'm going to add 3. X plus 3 equals 0. Now, when you move the 1/2, you have to move it separate. So 1 divided by 2, we're going to multiply by 2 to cancel. So that's 2x equals 1. Minus the 1, 2x minus 1 equals 0. Okay, x equals 1 minus 1. X minus 1 equals 0. Okay, so move everything to the left. All right, now, these are your factors. So we know that we have a factor x plus 3. We have a factor 2x minus 1. And we have a factor x minus 1. And I can find the polynomial if I multiply all of those factors together. Okay, so step 3, we're going to multiply all factors. So these were the roots or the zeros. These are the factors. Now if we multiply all that together, we will have the polynomial. Okay, but when you multiply, you can't multiply 3 binomials at one time. So you can only multiply 2 at once. So I'm just going to look at my first 2 are these. So I'm going to FOIL those first, and then I'll multiply it to the x minus 1. So x times 2x, 2x squared. X times -1, -1x. 3 times 2x, 6x. 3 times -1, -1. So now I have all of that multiplied to my last factor, x minus 1. But, I can combine like terms though. So when I have these x's, let's put those together. So it's 2x squared plus 5x minus 1 times the last factor I still had, x minus 1. Okay, now this is kind of a personal preference, but when we get to a trinomial, 3 parts times anything else, it is difficult for me to keep track of this distribution situation. So instead, I like to multiply using a box. So I'm going to put the 2x squared, the 5x, and the -1 on the top. I'm going to put the x and the -1 on the side. So I put one of my sets of parentheses on the top, one on the side. It doesn't matter which is which. And then I'm going to build a box for the number of terms. Okay, now to fill in the box, I'm going to multiply. So this first box is going to be 2x squared times x. That's 2x cubed. 5x times x is 5x squared. -1 times x is -1x. 2x squared times -1 is -2x squared. 5x times -1 is -5x. And -1 times -1 is +1. Okay, now I'm going to combine like terms. So I notice that I have, It's an eraser. I have negative 2x squared and 5x squared. I have negative 5x and negative 1x. So now if I write the polynomial, I have 2x cubed, 5x squared plus negative 2x squared. When I combine the x squareds, I have a positive 3x squared. Negative 1x and negative 5x is a minus 6x, and then a plus 1. So the polynomial that would give me these zeros is some function. I'm just going to give it a name. 2x cubed plus 3x squared minus 6x plus 1. That's the answer. Yesterday, you started with this equation and came up with these zeros. So we're literally doing everything backwards, okay? Number 2, if the zeros are 0, 2/3, and 3, step 1, we're going to make this x equals the zeros or the roots that are given. So write them as x equals. So x equals 0, x equals 2/3, x equals 3. Step 2, move everything to the left so that it all equals to 0. So when I have a fraction, remember, do that in 2 parts. So first multiply by the denominator to cancel. So 3x equals 2. Move the 2. 3x minus 2 equals 0. Okay, I didn't touch this one because it already equals 0. Now minus 3, x minus 3 equals 0. So I have 3 factors. X, 3x minus 2, and x minus 3. Okay, now multiply them all together. It doesn't matter which factors you choose to multiply first, but you need to pick 2 to multiply and then multiply the other after that. So I'm first going to multiply the x and the 3x minus 2. Okay, so x times 3x is 3x squared. X times negative 2 is negative 2x. There's no like terms to combine, so now I take that factor and I multiply to this factor. So I still have 2 binomials, so I'm just going to keep distributing or foiling. You could use the box here if you wanted, okay? So 3x squared times 1x is 3x cubed. 3x squared times negative 3 is negative 9x squared. Negative 2x times x is negative 2x squared. And negative 2x times negative 3 is positive 6. Combine the like terms. So 3x cubed minus 11x squared plus 6. And that is how you write the polynomial. So I'm going to give it a name because it's a polynomial function. So I'm going to say g of x equals 3x cubed minus 11x squared plus 6. You could give it a name. You could not give it a name. It doesn't really matter. Okay? All right. Next. Yeah, 3 more. Okay. The zeros are 2 and I plus 1. All right. Now here's where we get a little bit weird. If you have an I, you must also include the opposite. Or we call that a complex conjugate. Okay, so that means really I have zeros and, okay, so set x equals, okay, so x equals 2, x equals 1 plus I. But because I have 1 plus I need to also add x equals 1 minus I. So when you have an I, you have to include the opposite because that is always also a 0, even if it's not written. Okay, so step 3, we're going to move everything to the left. Okay, so minus 2. So x minus 2 equals 0. Now, when you move groups of I, you need to move them as a set of parentheses, as one group. Don't move the 1 and the negative I, or the I. Just move them together. So I'm going to subtract because it's a positive set of parentheses. So minus 1 plus I. Minus 1 plus I. So I have x minus 1 plus I equals 0. So same thing. Minus 1 minus I. So I have x minus 1 minus I equals 0. Okay? Those are my factors, and that looks really crazy, but it is what it is. Okay? Now, step 4, I need to multiply everything together. Okay, so here's what we got. I'm going to multiply the i's first. So my factors are x minus 2, x minus 1 plus I, and x minus 1 minus I. Okay, I'm going to multiply the I terms first. And I'm going to do it in a box. So I'm going to build a box. And I have x negative. Now, if I have negative 1 plus I, that's really negative 1 minus I. So distribute the negative sign. Then on the side, I have an x. And distribute your negatives, so negative 1 plus I. Okay. X times x, easy. X squared. X times negative 1 minus I. You're going to distribute the x. So x times negative 1, x. X times negative I, negative I, x. Same thing when you come down. Negative 1 plus I times x is negative 1x plus ix. Okay? Then, in order to find this last part, we have to multiply everything. So we basically have to FOIL our I pieces. Okay? So if I have negative 1 plus I times negative 1 minus I, I'm going to multiply all 4 of those. So I have negative 1 times negative 1, positive 1. Negative 1 times negative I, positive 1I. I times negative 1, negative 1I. I times negative I is negative I squared. Combine like terms, your plus 1I and your minus 1I are gone. So now you have 1 minus I squared. But remember, I squared is really negative 1. So you have 1 minus negative 1. It's 1 plus 1. So you really just have 2. Okay? Now, when you write all that out and you combine your like terms, so I have like terms, negative 1x, negative 1x. I also have like terms, ix and negative ix. Okay, so I have an x squared. I don't know why I made this box so like lopsided. Sorry, guys. Negative 1x and negative 1x is negative 2x. Negative ix and positive ix cancels. And then I have plus 2. Okay, that still needs to multiply to this x minus 2 that I have left over. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to build another box to multiply those to finish. So I have an x squared, a negative 2x, and a 2. On the side I have an x and a negative 2. Okay, x times x squared is x cubed. X times negative 2x is negative 2x squared. X times 2 is 2x. Negative 2 times x squared is negative 2x squared. Negative 2 times negative 2x is positive 4x. Negative 2 times 2 is negative 4. Find your like terms. So x squareds and x's. So I have x cubed. Negative 2x squared and negative 2x squared is negative 4x squared. 2x and 4x is 6x minus 4. And that is my answer. So it's a lot of work, but as long as you keep everything organized, you shouldn't be too bad. Just remember you can only multiply 2 things at one time. Also remember to keep your I pieces grouped and use a box, okay? I'm going to skip number 4 just for time because I feel like this video is already getting long. So let's go to number 5. Okay, if the zeros are 6i and 3, first, remember if you have an I, then you also have the opposite. So when we write our zeros or our roots as x equals, I have x equals 6i, which means I also have x equals negative 6i, and I have x equals 3. Okay, now this is a little different than the one before because the one before you had I plus or minus something. Here we have I multiplied to something. It's a little bit easier. So now move everything to the left so that you'll have equals 0. So minus 6i, whoops, sorry. So x minus 6i equals 0 plus 6i. X plus 6i equals 0 minus 3. X minus 3 equals 0. So my factors are x minus 6i, x plus 6i, and x minus 3. You can only multiply 2 at a time. So I'm going to multiply these 2 first. Okay? It's only 2 binomials, so you could use a box or you could FOIL. It's totally up to you. I'm going to FOIL or distribute. So x times x, x squared. X times 6i, 6ix. Negative 6i times x, negative 6ix. And negative 6i times positive 6i is negative 36i squared. All right, so we're going to combine the like terms. 6ix and negative 6ix, those cancel. So I have x squared. Now, negative 36i squared. Remember, I squared is really negative 1. Negative 36 times negative 1 is positive 36. So that's the factor I get from those first 2. Bring your last factor back. And now multiply those. I only have binomials again, so I'm going to distribute, but you could use that box if you wanted to. X squared times x, x cubed. X squared times negative 3, negative 3, x squared. 36 times x, 36x. 36 times negative 3. Give me a second. Let me make sure I don't get that wrong. 108. So negative 108. All right. Now, I don't have any like terms, so this is the polynomial. That would give me 0, 6i, and 3. That's it.